When Operation Warp Speed first got going, Joe Biden said, "I trust science. I don't trust Trump." Kamala Harris said, "I won't take the vaccines if Donald Trump tells me to." Right? So the beginning of vaccine hesitancy started with Biden and Harris. And then they brought up, situations like the Tuskegee experiments, and they scared people. But as soon as they became president and vice president, they demanded vaccine mandates and no questions asked.
Right. So a little bit of hypocrisy there. The first thing I want to correct is this is not a vaccine. It's not. I think there is, because of this religious-like faith we have in vaccines, because it's been pushed on us by Big Pharma in general, but then backed up by the news media, which they fund, backed up by the federal health agencies, which they have captured and corrupted. Everybody says vaccines are safe and effective, and they've saved millions and millions of lives. Again, I don't doubt that some vaccines are highly effective and have saved lives. But the problem is we don't really understand how vaccines work. We certainly don't understand what it does to our immune system when we're not just taking, given 3 or 4 or 5 over a lifetime, but literally close to 80 doses on the childhood and adolescent vaccine schedule now. We don't know what happens when we load people up with the aluminum adjuvant time and time again, far exceeding what acceptable levels would be in terms of toxicity. And when it comes to mRNA injection, that's a vaccine is either an attenuated or killed virus. What the mRNA does, first of all, it's encapsulated in a lipid nanoparticle, which was designed to permeate difficult to permeate barriers, like the blood-brain, like the placenta. They knew that it would not stay in the arm, so they lied to us about that. And what the mRNA does, and it's not real mRNA, which degrades very rapidly if it's in the body, one of the reasons they have to encapsulate it, this is modified RNA, so the body doesn't destroy it, and the body isn't destroying it. It's been found in circulation 700 days after injection, but what it does is it attaches to a cell, it puts that mRNA payload into the cell, and that mRNA then turns the cell into a manufacturing site of the most dangerous part of the coronavirus, which is the spike protein. So now your cell is actually producing something that is toxic to itself. It expresses that spike protein, and the body then attacks it because it's foreign. That is why you get inflammation. Inflammation of the heart is called myocarditis. Inflammation of the spinal column and brain are all kinds of neurological symptoms. So again, to a layman, this was described to me in late 2020, which is why there was no way I was ever going to get that injection, why I was monitoring VAERS very early on, expressing concern, warning the public, warning Francis Collins, but everybody ignored it because, again, they have this religious-like faith, and anybody that questions it, as I said, are labeled an apostate, a dangerous apostate. We are scorned, we are vilified, retribution is carried out against us. And that's where we are today. It's a very sad fact. So we've lost all perspective that, and by the way, I also mentioned, we all fear death and disease. The appeal of a shot that can prevent death and disease is unbelievably appealing and powerful. I understand that, but that has blinded us to critical thinking, to do really cost-benefit analysis. I mean, I think I heard in the hearing is, no one death is acceptable. Of a preventable, no death is acceptable. Well, they are willing to accept the death of people who suffer death from vaccine injuries, which are real, and it happens. But these individuals are ignored, and like Tim Wolscock, or Dr. Wolscock said in our previous hearing, he's one of the injection injured. I said, how does your group feel? And one word answer was abandoned. And trust me, parents of autistic children, parents whose children have died, they call it SIDS. We had one video testimony of a mother whose child died of SIDS. Everybody in the SIDS in support group, they were all talking about vaccines. They all had, the SIDS came after a vaccine, and yet all of them, couldn't have been the vaccine. There's no way the vaccine killed your kid, even though you had it the day before. So again, we are in a societal, medical establishment, federal health agency, news media, complete state of denial that vaccines can cause death and injury, that the COVID injections cause death and injury. We're just all supposed to accept it. And again, we're all labeled anti-science, anti-vax, even though we know that science has been corrupted. When you pay for science, you get the result you pay for. And that's what's happening. So science is corrupted. You can't trust it anymore. You've got people like Marshall Angel, who was editor of I think it was the New England Journal of Medicine, or JAMA, one of those two, resigned in 2000. About 10 years later, she started writing out why she resigned. She couldn't trust the science being published in those eminent scientific journals, medical journals. You can't replicate science. This is a mess. We have a huge mess on our hands, and there are very few people who are willing to talk about it honestly. I guess I'm one of the few.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.